Okay, so we got some more business to follow up from last week. Obviously, there was the closure of Bluepoint, and actually had an interesting supporter question here from 1040 STF. I couldn't stop thinking this week that Bluepoint is far too talented a team not to rise again from the ashes and form another studio, an independent one. Independence comes with its own share of stress, of course, but in these strange times, I can't help feeling it might actually be safer for a company and its employees to stand on their own rather than be part of a massive corporation. I think there's kind of
Mm.
pros and cons to that because life is very tough as an independent game studio. You're basically constantly chasing your next job. It's not easy, but there is basically the aftermath of Sony's decision is that the bottom line is there's an extremely talented studio out there ready made to be taking on some interesting projects, and then you're looking, of course, at Microsoft, who have got a problem in terms of their sort of stewardship of their entire brand at this point, which kind of got us thinking, didn't it, John? Basically about
Hmm.
Bluepoint, Microsoft. I mean, it kind of makes sense at this point, right?
Greenpoint.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, this is an interesting thing, and I'm not even necessarily saying it needs to be an acquisition, but I think if Microsoft were smart, and this would be a move Asha could make right away, get Bluepoint on board. They've struggled with a lot of these classic re-releases and other things with their
Hmm.
games over the years. This is no secret. Bluepoint is the type of company you want. They've done work for them before. They worked on Titanfall, if I recall,
Hmm.
right? They brought it to the Xbox 360, and it was a tremendous conversion,
Yeah.
honestly.
Hmm.
But imagine this: we got the Halo campaign evolve stuff happening already, right? What about more Halo, but like with the Bluepoint engine?
Yeah. People
Presuming
like
they
people
can
like
keep.
Halo. Let's have more of it. I mean,
So one of the problems that Halo's faced is like once it shifted to 343, like they never managed to find their footing, and they worked with other partners, but like it never really went the way it needed to. Halo 2 Anniversary is interesting enough
Hmm.
though, but like the whole Master Chief collection, the original Halo games, none of them really hit quite right. There's always things off about it. But I think if you gave a company like Bluepoint the Halo IP and let them do something with it, work their magic. Like imagine Demon Souls or Shadow of the Colossus level, like work but Halo. How freaking awesome
well, that's
that
a
could
really
be.
good point, actually, John, because you look at the campaign evolved footage and compare it to the original. Obviously, there's some great stuff happening there, right? But then you look at the
For
Demon
sure.
Souls on PS3 and then compare it to the PlayStation 5 version. We're looking at a quality level that's like, steps beyond.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's one of the better looking games of this generation still 6 years on. Like you look at that, it's a stunning experience. I would love to see them tackle a series. There's other series as well. Like imagine something like Crackdown, for instance, or any other classic Microsoft thing. But I really think Halo would be a smart play here because Bluepoint has experience with other companies' very big IPs,
Hmm.
right? And they treat them with care and are able to do just an amazing technical job on it. And I feel like Microsoft's currently at that state where Halo is really at risk, but I think
Right.
people would still love Halo. I think it still has power if you do it right. And you know, maybe even get them on an original Halo. I don't know. That might be a bridge too far for them at this point, but like I feel like they should at least start with something like this. Like if you ask me, they're already doing campaign evolve. What I would like to see is like imagine you take the next two Halo games, which is one story, and you make a singular product, right? That is that story. All through Halo 2 and 3 as a singular thing, one product. That would be so freaking cool.
Hmm.
And seeing that in their engine without the Unreal stuff, like it would be beautiful. And I'm sure like provided they get to keep their tech, that's the big question. But if they do, like I can't imagine they've been sitting on their laurels, right? Like they shipped Demon Souls like 6 years ago almost. And it's like I'm sure the engine continued to evolve with that God of War project and whatever else they were working on,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So you got to imagine like there's even more crazy tech there that we've not seen from those guys. And they always shipped stuff that was just in impeccable shape.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what is Bluepoint at this point? Is it's,
Right.
what happens post Sony? What happens to the infrastructure they have? What happens to the technology they have? How do they keep the staff together, assuming that they
I
can?
know.
It's just deeply unfortunate, but there is, in theory, there are plenty of games out there that would benefit immensely from having Bluepoint involved, whether it's remasters or even new versions, or sequels or whatever. I'm just, I mentioned Crackdown. Crackdown is just like, you go back and play that game. It's doing things, it has a focus in gameplay terms on stuff that's just not happening at the moment. The physics, for example, it's really crazy when you go back and play some of these games in the 360 era where physics was so important and created gameplay experiences that we don't see anymore. It's like I was playing the HDR and DLSS mod for Just Cause 3. And there's crazy stuff happening in that game that you just don't see anymore. So I think there's kind of like, you can't help but wonder, can we get any of that stuff back? And who would be the guys to do it? And the answer is Bluepoint.
Yeah, I actually think your idea of remastering or remaking Crackdown would be great, but I think they should remake Crackdown and also the Halo 3 multiplayer beta, which is what most people are buying Crackdown for. That's really what I bought Crackdown for. Although I actually ended up liking Crackdown quite a bit, at least that first game. I thought it was terrific.
I'll tell you what, I've said it before, the Crackdown playable demo, which was basically you had half an hour and you could accelerate the way you built up your character compared to the main game. It's like a mini game, and it's all right. I still think that's the best playable demo.
Yeah.
It stood alone. Anyway, sorry, I was interrupting.
No, of course. I mean, there are so many projects they could take on. In addition to what John said, Gears 2 and 3, make that a package with Reloaded. That would be great. Imagine remakes of those games.
Oh, yeah. We only got Gears 1 done and twice.
2 is still quite dated. 3, I think, still looks very beautiful, but certainly remakes would be incredible, I'm sure. Call of Duty games, I'd think about older Call of Duty games like Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2. They went back to Modern Warfare 1, 2, 3, but they have not gone back to a lot of those kind of classic Call of Duty games. And they've also not gone back to their multiplayer components really as much. They've really focused on the single player so as not to cannibalize the current Call of Duty game, which I think is a bit of a mistake there. Also, from Bethesda, we've seen Oblivion, we're seeing Fallout. Why not Morrowind? Morrowind, incredible art, cool game, very dated in a lot of respects. That would be awesome, I'm sure. Or possibly even from Rare, you have a lot of projects that they could tackle, but maybe something like Banjo-Kazooie or Conker's Bad Fur Day, doing that again, modernizing those games, make another very beautiful remaster of Conker's Bad Fur Day, beautiful remake. Sure, that would be appreciated. But yeah, on the Halo front, I mean, certainly, when you look at the Halo games that are currently in the Master Chief Collection, Halo 3 does look a little bit more dated than the other games. Could be a really good target for a remake. Halo Reach as well, I think, is just a brilliant game. Could use a remake. And maybe they could do the same approach that Halo Studios is taking with expanding content, maybe adding some bridging content like John suggested, maybe between Halo 2 and Halo 3, things like this, to further explain the storyline. Tweaking encounters, tweaking mechanics, that's all brilliant, and doing it within the Bluepoint engine, which won't suffer the kinds of technical issues that Alex and John noted with the Halo campaign Evolved footage, where you're crossing a corridor and there's like a stutter in the middle of the corridor for some reason that keeps happening over and over and over again, right? That would not need to happen within the Bluepoint engine, and I'm sure the graphical result would be extraordinary regardless. So yeah, I think there are a lot of potential projects they could take over, again, with certain provisos. They were able to keep on, probably the majority of the staff. You'd want to keep that team. You'd also want to keep the Bluepoint engine, whether that involves licensing it from Sony, purchasing it, or whether it belongs to the studio with its IP, or exactly how that shakes out. We don't know what the details are of whatever agreement might have occurred there in terms of the acquisition that took place in 2021. But yeah, in general, I think it's a no-brainer, and I think it would be a really bold move too for Asha to come in and say, hey, we're going to make this acquisition, this smart, targeted acquisition, cost a lot less than $70 billion, or maybe not an acquisition, maybe an acqui-hire, basically, of a dead studio. Whatever they choose to do, that would be a really smart move, saying, hey, we're going to pick up where Sony left off, take this studio, put them to work on our vast library of old IP, and have a great time with it, and really make a mark in the industry that way. I think that would look terrific.
Okay. Supporter question. Shinobi Tenchu Gaiden. asks, "Good day, gents!" Exclamation point. Thinking about the unfortunate shattering of Bluepoint Games and other recent closures, it's always a bummer to hear about people losing their jobs, and I wish them well. But perhaps a silver lining, in my opinion, far too many game developers, very talented ones at that, are working on "quote unquote" part 3 of fill in the blank franchise that I was bored with halfway through part 1. Does this free them up to work on something more unique and interesting? God forbid new! Exclamation point, double question mark. I think back to all of the quirky, risky, fun, interesting games from basically the early 80s through to at least the Xbox and PS2 era. Easier to take a risk and be creatively freed from the bonds of big developers, or too hard to make games without the financial backing of said developers? Keep the great content coming. I think, what you're looking for if you're a studio in Bluepoint's position is probably stability and survival.
Yeah, exactly.
The concept of saying, hey, you're going to publishers and say, hey, I've got this great new idea for a game. First of all, you actually need to create something to show them, which is going to require money. I don't think it's probably the preferable route forward to Bluepoint at this point. I'm just hoping for the best possible outcome for that studio at the moment, because I just still can't quite believe what's happened there. I'm sure there's probably behind the scenes stories that would explain everything, but I can't quite understand how a studio can be acquired and then closed when they haven't even had the opportunity to ship a game. Crazy stuff.